Let's talk about sex, cosmic sex, okay? Not that kind of sex, but I do use the word sex on purpose, okay? What we call sex is actually mirrored through the universe, and it has a lot to do with creating anything you want to make. It has a lot to do with doing the things you want to do in life, bringing forth the things you want to breathe. And I'm not talking about some weird, uh, I'm not talking about some weird, I don't know, like retention of sperm or something like that. I'm talking about the fundamentals of reality itself. Okay. So let's get right into it. So, not the kind that comes from, when she's the metaphysical dance between power and force, matrix and light, womb and seed. Before the first kiss, before even the first breath of time, there was existence, and there was the matrix, not a simulation, but the primal medium, the womb of all becoming. So, this is super important. Um, and this is what we're going to be covering today, kind of like the cosmology. Now, when I break down the cosmology of the philosophy of order, I want everybody watching to understand that you do not have to take this as for me, it's true. It is not required to believe this in order to be a philosopher of order, but it is required to understand it, right? If you do not understand this, then it's going to be very hard to be a philosopher of order and to fully understand how things work and how to pretty much manifest anything you want in your life and how to change the world and change yourself without having to use too much effort. Okay. So I perceive the philosophy of order as the way of life, not just like a way of life, but like, and what I mean by that is not like the best way of life that you could have, but like literally the way that life works. Okay. And now it's going to make more sense to you as I break this down. So the philosophy of order, introduction to cosmic sex and creation. In the beginning, right, there was everything, but not yet something. There was everything, but not yet something. There was undivided existence, the all. And within that undivided wholeness emerged the first miracle, right? What some may call immaculate conception, not of a person, but of a differentiation. Okay. Creation did not begin with chaos, but with structure, forms that would later be echoed in biology, in ritual, in art, and in the dance of galaxies. To understand the origins of order, we must look at the metaphysical echoes of sex, the sacred pattern that plays out from the micro to the cosmic. Okay. Again, so when we talk about this, we've already said this. So when you talk about things starting with existence itself, okay, there was I don't really want to use the word time, but there was a time when existence wasn't multiple things. It was just being, okay? It's very hard to conceive of, but nonetheless, but within that state, there was still have to be some sort of matrix, some sort of feminine, okay? Now, I'm about to explain this for you. This is called, let me back this up, make sure y'all can see the whole thing. So, asexual archetype. So, before man and woman, before pollen and bee, life unfolded through patterns that require no partner. So, I'm just going to give you some examples of this here on Earth. It's funny because we were just having this conversation live. You do not need a partner to procreate. Well, if you're, most humans you do, but in biology, this is not required, okay? So you have binary fission, right? One becomes two, bacteria dividing, the most primal echo of replication, okay? So, cells, bacteria, viruses, I mean, literally just like copying themselves. Okay, you have budding, life emerging from life, right? Hydras growing miniature cells from their sides, right? Then you have fragmentation. So like if you had a starfish, I don't know if y'all know this, starfish and earthworms, you can cut them in half and they will duplicate. You can cut them in threes. As long as their heart chamber is preserved, they will survive and you'll get more from them. there will be more of them created. Now I always struggle with pronouncing this. Let's hope sponges too. Exactly, Nikki. Parthenogenesis. All right, what people call virgin birth. Right, that's eggs hatching without sperm, untouched by masculine force. So we were just talking about this in my life. Now, what you have to understand is a lot of spiritual feminism is running strong in the current of spirituality, which makes sense because we're being ruled in a very masculine, forceful world, and so you'll see this. But as a philosopher of order, I need y'all to look beyond that. I need you to look beyond like feminism and masculinism or whatever you call that, the patriarchy and politics and Republicans, Democrats. You got to look past all of that. Okay. The reality is in biology, though, yes, women can procreate without men, probabilistically unlikely. But what happens is amongst animals, we haven't recorded this with every animal, but we certainly recorded, especially in a lot of fish creatures, is that in isolation, right? If they truly believe that they are the last of their kind, right? It seems to be some sort of defense mechanism. The defense mechanism creates, the ability for them to develop the egg without contribution of more genetics. And I think this is amazing. I think it is one of the most miraculous things. But the reason why you don't see that happening in nature a lot is because it's literally for emergency situations when it comes to life. Because though on a very basic level, you'll see these duplications and things like that, on a more complex level, diversity rules everything. Like the most diverse creatures are going to outlive the ones with the least diversity. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. So these mechanisms are not just biological trivia. They are sacred scripts etched into existence. Remember that things are mirroring each other. Things don't just happen. The universe is very biased with patterns. It likes patterns. What works, works. Okay, just keep that in your mind. Hence of a deeper metaphysical truth that life is not birthed through violence, but through invitation. Okay, super important to understand that. All right, so creation as courtship. Okay, the ritual of cosmic union. If power is feminine, by the way, power is having the ability to make great change with little to no effort. That's power. If somebody walks into the room and just everybody yelling and screaming at each other, and they go like a little whisper, or they raise their hand, and everybody is silent, right? They're going to be seen as powerful. Little to no effort, affecting great change. If somebody walks into the room and everybody's talking and they start grabbing people, like, be quiet, shoving, pushing people down, say be quiet, punching people, knocking them out, and then scream, be quiet. It's force. It works, it's still effective, but it's not power. They're like, man, that guy's forceful. He'll come in, he'll set things right. You need somebody to be forceful and to come in with the force, call on that guy, right? So, force relatively uses a great amount of effort in order to affect change within reality. This doesn't look clear on my screen, so I guess I'll just listen. Apologies. Next time I'll make sure this is clearer, or I'll just present behind me. Okay, so if power is feminine and force is masculine, then creation is the eternal courtship, right? Creation's their internal courtship of back and forth. From dogs and birds to men and gods, the dance repeats. So there's something called the tournament ritual. Okay. Does anybody know what tournament ritual in nature is? Does anybody know? Anybody want to take a guess, a swing at it? That's fine. You don't have to. Okay. So here's how this works. Let's say you have a bunch of dogs and there's a female in heat. Okay. You got a bunch of male dogs and there's a female and she is in heat. they're going to fight each other. This is called a tournament ritual. They cannot all have her. That's not possible in the act of just create, like, in the sexual act. So they have to fight. Okay. There's many creatures that do this tournament ritual. This happens with rams. When you see rams, boom, hitting each other, head on. They're doing the same thing. They're fighting for the right to spread their genes, right? In the dancing ritual, you'll see some birds literally go up to a female bird and they'll start dancing and they'll show their colors like, look how I look how amazing I am, right? In order to convince her that they are worthy. You have the singing ritual. There are creatures that will sing certain songs. They'll make certain sounds to prove, look, I'm worthy. I'm your person. And we see this reflected in the human ritual. Okay. Now some of y'all may disagree. So let me break this down real quick. So again, put your politics to the side. Gender roles are real, but they're also fake. I'm just going to briefly explain this to you so no one gets confused while I'm talking about this. All social creatures have gender roles. Okay, that's just the way it works. The gender roles that y'all have today are made up by corporations, right? A man's job is to provide, put food on the table and to go to work every day and to work until he can. And a woman's job is to stay home and clean the house while he's out working all day. These were literally invented by corporations in order to make sure that the machine was running. I'm not going to go too deep into that today, but you can study Sigmund Freud's nephew. You can study John D. Rockefeller. This is pretty known in history. Prior to that, there was the farming gender roles, which nobody necessarily made happen. But again, farming was further from our nature or our essence. Farming was became very misogynistic. And again, I don't have time with this particular lecture to go into that. But humans did originally have gender roles in egalitarian societies. So most indigenous people, not all of them, it's a very diverse group, but the vast majority of them, I would say, most anthropologists would argue over 90 to 95% had gender roles in the sense that, men hunt, most of the time men protect, women forage, women watch the children until the boys are about normally like 12, 13, then they go off with the men too. And just that's pretty much how it was. Now, the reason why a lot of people have an issue with that is because there was a certain time frame where people were saying like hunting was the most important thing and the women don't do anything. But we know this is not true. Okay, foraging is more successful than hunting. Hunting is extremely important. Don't get me wrong. I don't believe that one's more important than the other. But when a woman is foraging, it's super important. She's creating the medicines. She's creating the herbs. She's actually collecting the majority of food that the tribe is going to eat. So they normally have the most say when it's like where are we going to stay tonight if they're a nomadic group. It's not that they're like we're giving the woman all the say. It's just like it kind of makes sense to let them decide. They know where all the good stuff is, right? And so, but there was a myth that there was no importance in foraging. And so that's why a lot of women today do not like to be foragers. Now, the other reason why some anthropologists push back on this is because women did hunt. Okay, so there was a low percentage, but women did hunt. Men did forage, right? Low percentage, but it did happen, right? So it's not like these egalitarian societies are like, no, you're a man, you must hunt, and no, you're a woman, you must forage. It's that most women wanted to forage, most men wanted to hunt. That's just what made the most sense. One of the reasons is women were normally pregnant pretty often through the fertile years. It just didn't make sense to bring a baby or to be pregnant trying to hunt. The rest didn't really make a lot of sense at that time. So, I could go on and on and on, but I don't want to go too far. My main point in saying all that is that there was gender roles going on here. Okay. And the gender roles are again centered around power and force. Men are expected to do the most risky tasks and are expected to force their way to food. Women are expected to do the most inviting, attracting tasks, you know, uh, you know, taking care of the forest, making sure that it grows, making sure the ecosystem's proper so that their food can still keep coming, so they can keep collecting food, food forests, permaculture, things of that nature. That's more of a power position. And so this is reflecting in nature, going back to the ritual. So it was normal for men to be the ones who initiate romantic relationships. I don't like to call them romantic relationships, loving relationships, because that is a masculine thing to do. I am going to go and take the risk. I am coming to her. Woman normally took the power position. You are to come to me. I'm not coming up to you, right? You are going to come to me. You are to prove that you are worthy to enter. And that's what all of these are about. Okay. All these courtships are about males proving. Now, again, you do have masculine females like hyenas, and this kind of flips around, right? You do have feminine males like seahorses, and a lot of this flips around. So, masculine and feminine are not gender or not sex specific. Super important for me to say that. But for the most part, you are going to see the game is males or the masculine trying to prove to the feminine that I am worthy to enter. I am worthy to enter. Whether that's fighting to the death, whether that's dancing, whether that's singing, whether that's asking somebody on a date and saying how much they make and why they're such a good match and blah, blah, blah. Okay. All these things are very important when understanding the way that these things work. Okay. So then each act, no matter how primal, let me see if I move this closer if y'all can see it, because I don't think y'all can really see this. Okay, so each act, no matter how primal or poetic, shares a singular aim: convince the feminine that I am worthy to enter. Mating begins with force, with push, the pursuit, the charge of the masculine, but it is power that grants continuity. The sperm races, yes, but it is the egg that chooses. So, for those who don't know, when people procreate, the sperm is taking all the risk, all the risk. Most of them are going to die, right? And even when they get to the egg, they must get her permission in order to enter. Again, what I'm saying is mirrored across nature. Okay, this is not like I'm making this up. This is things that you can go outside and you can go see for yourself. Okay, and you'll see that kind of ritual, that kind of pattern reused in nature a lot. Um, and when it comes to creating what you want in life, you should remember this: when you want something that is not yours, when you have to create a matrix, you're going to have to start with force. You're going to have to force some things. You're going to have to make some things change. You're going to have to force yourselves out of your comfort zone. But after you create that new matrix, that new home, that new environment for this new version of you to develop in, you'll be able to stop a bit and allow power to take over. Okay. Um, Moving forward. Okay. So, oh, there we go. So wombs all the way down, all the way up. Okay, wombs all the way down, all the way up. The cosmos is a garden, seeded by conscious and nurtured by matrices. Okay, layers upon layers of receptive fields that catch and cultivate force. To understand this, we begin with three foundations: existence, right? The first principle: before anything can be, something must exist. Existence is not cause, it simply is. It is the spirit behind all being, the uncaused cause. Okay, then you have the matrix, the womb. For existence to separate itself, to form things, there must be a medium. The matrix is this medium. Matrix means mater, which means womb, but a matrix is a medium or structure in which you develop it. Okay? Then you have consciousness, that comes next. The force, where the matrix is receptive, consciousness is active. It is a masculine archetype, the light, the will to manifest. It does not emerge from the matrix. It arrives with it as its mirror and counterpart. Okay? Go on. Hope y'all can see this. So then we move forward to the next slide. Okay, yeah. the abstract realm, the firstborn of union. So you get existence, you get the womb, you get consciousness. After that, you get the abstract. Okay, the firstborn of union from the sacred union between the matrix and consciousness, which is coming from existence, emerges the abstract realm, the eternal space where all forms exist in potential. And from this realm arises the Most High, not a God in robes. So when I say, and even when we say He, it's really inappropriate when we talk about the Most High as He. I think we talk about the Most High and say He because it seems to be very masculine. You're talking about something that is uh, constantly doing, forcing, changing, monitoring, watching over. And these are things we would consider under force instead of power. Um, but I mean, you don't have to refrain from saying he, but just say the Most High. I think it's a better way to go about it. So neither seated nor born, the Most High is um, immaculate. So I miswrote that. We say he because canon and patriarchy is masculine. Right. Um, so I also think we say he because, okay, so I'm gonna go a little deeper into the whole Most High thing. So the Most High is normally depicted as an old man in most cultures. But I'm gonna get weird with y'all. When you go deeper into these cultures, it's normally like a man with breasts. I'm serious. A man with a uterus. Um, so this used to bug me when I used to be when I was just coming out of Christianity. I'm like, why are they portraying the Most High with a beard, but also like female breasts? It very much so bothered me. We can dig even deeper into this later, but I think their message was like, look, this thing is masculine, surely, in the way that it's operating, but it is extremely feminine. So I guess in a way it felt wrong to just depict it as only a man.
Mm.
We could get deeper into that tonight if y'all want. Um, right. So anyway, going further, so consciousness and matrix simultaneously, he is the spirit of sovereignty. There goes that he word, beyond time before causality. Very being gives rise to space. Its very being gives rise to space, time, order, and entropy. Okay. Um, and so let's go forward. So what does that give birth to? Okay, well, order and entropy, what I call the cosmic twins. Remember that this is me all just kind of simplifying this. I'm doing a lot of um, anthropomorphizing here, but it's just so that we can understand what we're talking about. So from the Most High emerged two children, order and entropy, right? So the Most High, also the reason why the Most High is normally considered to be masculine is because the Most High is always associated with like a multitude of straight feminines around him, it, they, you know, and um, and he's always seeding these matrices. So again, very very interesting. We'll go deeper into that. So so order and entropy emerge, not enemies but siblings, not opposites but reflections. Order gives structure, continuity, coherence. Entropy dissolves, separates, allows change. You cannot have one without the other. Entropy only dissolves what order first structured. Order only structures what entropy leaves undone. They are twins, two necessary sides of becoming. The cosmos unfolds from their dance. And as y'all know, from the terminology that I'm using, um, somebody mute their screen or phone, please? Um, but yeah, so from oh yeah, so you can tell that entropy is very important. I mean, order and entropy is very important to this philosophy. So this whole like twins of entropy and order you're going to find a lot through the philosophy of order. I like to say entropy, order is much stronger, but entropy is much faster, right? It could take you years to build something, and it could take one moment for it to fall apart, right? Um, and so they're in this constant dance, but that dance is creation, so or causing creation. So it's a very important dance. Okay, so symbolism and sacred language. Feminine and masculine are not about gender. They are archetypes, universal roles etched into the code of the cosmos. Every ritual of creation, every act of generation reflects this structure. Mating, art, language, life, they are variations of a singular truth. Force seeks entry. Power grants form. Remember that. This is why mystics and prophets claim immaculate conception, not to mimic biology, but to reflect metaphysics. To be born without seed is to echo the Most High, to arise from pure existence, untouched by temporal calls, right? And so you'll see a lot say, "I have no father. My father is God," and that's calling back to the Most High, who they'll say seated Himself. Or itself, depending on which camp you're in. So moving on, boom, boom. So this is the next part. So we're coming towards the end of this. Oops. So yeah, we're coming toward the end of this. Let's skip something. There we go. So yeah, we're coming toward the end of this. So what we're about to get into is some of the objections. So as students of the philosophy of order, I want y'all to remember something. Question this stuff. Question it. The only way that you'll make these things stronger is by legitimately testing it against your intellect. Okay? Push it. See where it bends. See where it breaks. Okay, so here are some, this is the logical foundation of what I'm saying, and I'm also going to give you some of what people would see as a problem to what I'm saying. I'm going to answer them. So we're getting close to y'all expressing what y'all think, so be prepared. I expect everyone to contribute to the conversation, okay? No wallflowers in this party. Also, okay, so existence is the first principle. That's my claim. Okay. Now, Kant, a philosopher, might argue existence is not a thing, but a predicate. Can something be foundational if it's not ontologically discrete? And what the critique really is existence isn't a thing, right? It's a state, is what some would argue. I think this misses the whole point. That state must be in order for anything else to be, right? Being itself must be for anything to come into being, right? There must always be something, or there will always be nothing. All right. So then my second claim, a womb or matrix must exist for differentiation. So some might say, why does a matrix why must a matrix exist? Why can't things already be in a state of separation before a matrix? But that's because for anything to come into being, it needs a medium or structure, right? So if you're going to argue that things came here separated, how did they get here separated? Right? Because if you're claiming that they're already differentiated, then the question is, how were they differentiated at the very beginning? Right? How did that happen? Right? You need a medium or structure. Consciousness is the masculine. A lot of people will fight that. They'll say, that's a gendered metaphor and anthropomorphized. But again, I'm not doing any anthropomorphizing because I would say that across different species, that we can observe that the masculine is the force and the feminine is the power, and consciousness is forceful, in my opinion. I am aware. I have awakened, right? I am, right? Like this, even birth, like a child being born is a very forceful act, right? Right after all the power becomes another forceful act, a final forceful act before the light, before the consciousness. So I would argue under any circumstance that it is force. The abstract realm is born from you. Now, remember, for anything to be masculine, it must also be feminine. So obviously, there are feminine parts of consciousness. And for anything to be feminine, there must be masculine. So there's obviously masculine parts of a womb. Okay, I just want to make that clear. The abstract realm is born from union. Okay, so someone might argue Occam's razor, and they might say, "You're evoking an extra realm for what?" You already have the existence, you have the womb, you have consciousness. Why can't consciousness in the womb just be the abstract realm? And so my hit back to that is actually all the way until the manifestation of the Most High, they're truly all one thing. Technically, even after the Most High, everything is one, but especially here, they're truly all one thing. There's just it's like when you look at a film, okay? The way for us to watch the film is one at a time, but really that's not how the film happened. It's just a bunch of pictures. It's moving pictures. And so my best way to explain it to you is one at a time, right? But it all happened at one time. I hope that makes sense. The Most High is self-existence. My claim. Self-existence may be circular existence, justifying itself requires logical rigor. And so one might say, so you're just saying it just came into being, but why? How? Things that are necessary will always be. There are things that must be. And so the Most High, by what it is, the Most High is the highest manifestation. So we have all these things around us are manifestations of existence. That is undeniable. There's no way around that the things around me are manifestations of existence. Completely undeniable. So then the question is, what is the best representation of existence? What is the highest manifestation of existence? What is manifesting the attributes of existence in its best form? That is the Most High. So if there are manifestations everywhere, there has to be something that is the closest to existence. And that is what people have deemed over many years as the Most High. I don't even make the claim the Most High has to be a creator. All right, so then you have order and entropy. One might say, scientifically, entropy is measurable. Order is not defined quantity in physics. Well, they're trying to in physics. It's called negentropy. So you do have order within entropy, so they're trying to figure out how to measure it. But yes, correct. Like they don't fully have a way to measure order right now. We do have a way to measure entropy. I don't think that's a problem in what I'm saying. Okay. So and here are some of the, here are some of the other ones that people might use to refute what I'm saying. Consciousness could be a late product of evolution, not primordial force. I'll go into some of these later. I have to go a little quicker. I don't want to take too much of y'all time. I want to leave some time for question and answers. Gender metaphors may limit clarity. I already explained how I'm not just talking about humans. Entropy and order may not be balanced at all. Entropy always increases in closed systems. I never made a case for them being balanced. I said for one to exist, the other must be as well. So, all right, now I'm about to do something called basic. This is how I teach. It's called the BBI method. Basic, beyond, infinity. Okay. So I'm just going to read these. This is going to make sure, pay attention. This is going to make sure that you understand this. What it's going to do is it's going to explain this to you on multiple different levels. By the time you get to the highest level, you should understand. And if you don't, write your question down. Okay, basic. Long before people or animals or even stars, there was everything. But it hadn't turned into anything yet. Then something special happened. Like when two friends come together and make something new. The universe started to grow, kind of like when seeds grow into plants. Some living things can make new life all by themselves, like how a starfish can grow a new arm. Everything that exists today came from this big dance between two forces, one that gives and one that receives. Okay? That's one way of explaining it. Another way is before anything existed, there was a kind of everything, a giant wholeness that hadn't yet split into parts. Then a great change began, creation. Instead of starting with chaos, it started with patterns and order. Every part of nature, from tiny cells to giant galaxies, follows a kind of dance between two sides, one that gives energy and one that receives and shapes it. Life can happen in many ways, even without two parents, like plants that grow new stems or animals that clone themselves. These patterns teach us that creation is about harmony between opposites. All right, moving to beyond now. Now we're going beyond. The text describes, text that I wrote, creation as a sacred partnership between two principles, the active, masculine or consciousness force, and the receptive, feminine or matrix/power. Before physical reality, existence itself divided into these archetypal roles. Life reflects this structure, from asexual reproduction in cells to complex mating rituals in animals and humans. The universe itself mirrors this cosmic sex, where the act of creation is not domination but mutual invitation. Order and entropy, structure and change arise as twin results of this original union. Let's go further beyond. Okay. So this presents a metaphysical framework in which creation is not random or chaotic, but the pattern interaction of archetypal principles. Existence itself divides into matrix, the womb or medium, consciousness, the activating light, and being, the underlying reality. This triad births the abstract realm, a space of potential forms. From this unity, differentiation occurs, producing order and entropy as complementary processes. Cosmic sex becomes a metaphor for the generative interplay of receptive and active forces throughout all levels of existence, from biology to cosmology. Okay? All right, now we're going to infinity. Okay? The text offers a metaphysical cosmology that reinterprets sexual archetypes as fundamental to existence itself. It proposes that the universe originates from the dynamic polarity between receptive and active principles, analogous to feminine and masculine energies. This polarity, operates across scales: physical, reproduction, psychological, creativity and desire, and cosmic, order and entropy. The matrix is the medium of manifestation, while consciousness is the directing light. Their union gives rise to the abstract realm, from which differentiated existence unfolds. Creation thus represents a sacred dialectic rather than a mechanistic process. And let's go to the final one. Okay, so this constructs a philosophical cosmogenesis grounded in metaphysical sexual archetypes as an ontological category. It posits that the primal act of creation is not physical, but a metaphysical differentiation within undivided being, producing the dual aspects of matrix, right? Receptive field and consciousness, active field. Their interplay yields the abstract realm, a platonic domain of potential forms. The emergence of order and entropy are dialectical twins, resonates with process philosophy and thermodynamics. metaphors of becoming, right? And then you have the cosmic six, which it's a function of this device for describing generative polarity across ontological, excuse me, I don't have my water here, my tongue's getting dry, strata uniting biology, metaphysics, and phenomenology under a single archetypal schema. Yeah, I don't have my water in here, but boom, woo, I got through it, y'all. All right, questions and answers, and then I'm going to give y'all your assignments. Yes, you have assignments. Now it's time for Q&A. If you're wondering, this is a family reunion shirt I got on. My ancestors right here. J.E. Jones, Nayetta Jones. All right. Now come in, please. Hey. You're the GOAT. All right. Excuse me. This was an introduction. So again, before y'all ask questions, remember this. I believe this wholeheartedly. This was given to me spiritually. This does not need to be believed in order to be a philosopher of order, but you do have to understand this. Everybody here is expected to ask a question, or even if you have a disagreement, to voice it. Everybody's expected to contribute in every meeting if you're here. Okay, so whoever wants to go first, it is on you.